Insurance policy. First subject. Paying a premium for discounting the future. One of the arguments for the superiority of free market capitalism is that individual businesses have a strong incentive to produce efficiently. The efficiency comes in two ways. First, a firm is looking to generate revenues by selling goods that consumers are willing to buy. This requires avoiding producing goods that have such little value, customers will only pay little or not buy it at all. Second, a firm is looking to produce goods at the lowest cost possible. This requires using appropriate technologies as well as avoiding waste and risk from accidents. One of the ways the market signals to businesses about risky behavior is through the price of insuring against losses. The higher the probability of something bad happening, or the greater the damages from it occurring, the higher the price for business insurance. Thus, from a market perspective, an accurate estimation of these potential losses is essential for pricing insurance so as to incentivize a business to avoid the most costly behavior. However, one of the challenges of a private economy is that damages or costs to others, known as negative externalities, might not be properly accounted for. An example, manufacturers of circuit boards use toxic chemicals for etching and cleaning. While the chemicals themselves might not be expensive to produce, disposal, so as to avoid polluting the environment, can be. If there is insufficient waste regulation and enforcement, businesses might find it more profitable to dump the waste into waterways. Households and other businesses downstream then suffer higher costs for healthcare and pollution abatement. Some of the biggest challenges are when negative externalities manifest in the future, making it more difficult to privatize the cost to society as a whole. How does this apply to risk management? Optimizing risk is dependent on what we find acceptable and desirable. While humans are typically driven by emotions and feelings concerning risk, thanks to our limbic system, formulas and algorithms are not. Consider the present value calculation, maybe the most essential financial concept. The crucial parameter is the discount rate, how quickly the value of future net income is discounted. The discount rate is thus an expression of how much a decision maker prefers value today relative to tomorrow. The higher the rate, the more short-term or myopic the decisions. Thus, one way businesses and corporations express their preferences is through the discount rate they use. However, the discount rate is not a fixed number found in nature. It is a parameter the organization selects consistent with its mission and goals. Venture capitalists will set a very high discount rate since they are investing in risky projects that require big payoffs to be worthwhile. Nonprofits focusing on long-run sustainable outcomes should use very low discount rates, since it is the benefits deep into the future they seek to realize. However, looking into the future is like driving in a fog. The denser the fog, the less one can see what lies ahead, and the greater the uncertainty of its outcomes. That uncertainty increases the perception of risk, which leads to discounting the future even more quickly. A company that uses a high discount rate is, in essence, choosing to ignore long-term consequences, both positive and negative, in making decisions. It is a vicious cycle where uncertainty about the future leads to more myopic decisions, which tends to lead to bleaker, more uncertain futures, which reinforces greater discounting of that future, and hence reinforces the behaviors that keep the cycle going until the system fails. This is where our relation to the future, through present value discount rates, becomes critical. Insurance companies take in premiums in the present to cover risk of loss in the future. As long as those risks are localized and show up during the duration insurance is in force, actuaries can well align the losses with premiums. However, if the risks are global and show up further into the future, that alignment breaks down. In other words, businesses may engage in risky behavior now, which insurance companies may experience as losses even after the business no longer exists. A firm that steeply discounts future costs can end up inducing greater losses for the insurance company and society as a whole. So how can we better account for all this? One possible way is for businesses to publicly state the discount rate by which they make their decisions. The lower the discount rate, the greater the regard for future outcomes. This allows insurance companies to better estimate the risk of future losses a business is likely to incur. The greater the regard for the future, the lower the premiums. This will then send a market signal to businesses to tend toward more foresighted decision-making. Of course, for this to be effective, an insurance company will need to be able to inspect decision-making processes to see if the firm is being faithful to their declarations. On the other hand, a firm need not make any declaration and avoid such inspection. Insurance companies could then rate them as if they are in the highest risk category. Transparency is encouraged by lower premiums. Another way of understanding this is from the perspective of sustainability. One question we can ask is, how long do you want to live or your organization to continue? This is a question of endurance. Actuaries often use survival models to estimate life expectancy. In essence, sustainability is about embracing culture, lifestyles, and missions that decrease the probability of systemic failure. The natural world is in many ways the greatest production plant humans have. It produces the air, water, plants, wildlife, minerals, and much more that we rely on in the process of sustaining itself. To a certain extent, humans have attempted to take over and manage these processes, with many successes. However, much like a generous endowment provided by our parents, we can either run through it quickly, or we can prudently balance our desire to enjoy ourselves now with a long-run vision of what we will pass on to the future. It is how society accumulates the meaningfulness capital that long-lasting civilizations enjoy. At the core of risk management is the avoidance of catastrophes and reducing volatility. It is just another way of phrasing the goals of endurance and stability, the essence of sustainability. This also implies that change and growth must also be optimized. Rapid short-term growth is associated with great economic and social change. This eventually decreases stability and social cohesion, which in turn can suppress the potential for future growth. This is why how we consider the future in our decision-making, such as through present value calculations, is one of the resources that must also be sustained. Sustainability is thus also a feedback mechanism of the decision-making self that is stable and endurable. That self can be a person, a household, a corporation, a country, or a civilization. Insurance companies and risk managers have an important calling in all of this. By setting premiums that are proportional to a firm's regard to the future, they can incentivize behavior that provides a more sustainable outcome and provide more freedom into the future.